delight to introduce Vera McNally, and she is going to talk to us about the sacred pause, finding power in the stillness. Reverend Vera McNally.
I'm on. Good morning, beautiful souls. It is truly a blessing to be here today in this sacred community with the hearts are open and the spirit is alive. I invite you now to take a deep breath with me. Inhale, hold for a moment, and let it out. Let's do this one more time. Take a deep breath in and hold and let it out. Feel yourself arriving here fully in this moment. Now that breath that we just took together, when we hit that pause, that is the moment of stillness, of presence, of awareness, and that is the doorway into what I want to speak about today, the sacred pause. So I'd like to take a moment and close your eyes. We'll do an opening treatment. Let us go within into that still place at the center of our being where there is one life, one presence, one infinite spirit that resides. And in that stillness, we remember who we are, divine expressions of peace, of clarity, and love. Every pause we take becomes an opening for the spirit to move through us. Every pause is a sacred opening for the divine guidance. Every moment of stillness anchors us in truth, strengthens our faith, and reveals the path before us. We give thanks for the gift of stillness, for the peace, and for the presence that speaks clearly in the quiet places of our soul. With gratitude for this gift of stillness, we let it be, and so it is. So we truly live in a culture that rewards motion, productivity, and speed. So when we get up in the morning, do we take a pause? Do we just take that, it's morning time? I know for me, most times it's, morning time, got to get the coffee going, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. And by the time I get to the kitchen to turn on the coffee pot, I realize, let's start this day over again. Because when we forget to take that pause in the morning, just to reflect on what a great night's sleep we had, and just to appreciate waking up in the morning, then what happens with my day, if I don't do that, then it's chaos all day long. It's chaos. So for me, it's like that one breath. And sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3, and some mornings I need 10 of those deep breaths to keep going. Because our days are filled with our cell phones going. How many times, sometimes we don't even know that it rang, but we check just in case, right? So we're tied to that. We're tied to that part of it. Endless notifications. We get emails. We don't get too much in our mail anymore because people don't send a lot of things. But even when mail comes, we're ripping it open right away, and mostly our bills, and we just kind of throw them aside and say, that's when we need a pause and think, okay, thankful that our bills came in, because it does provide electricity, provides gas, right? So there's many things that have benefits with that. But it is take that pause and be thankful that we have that we are able to have electricity here. There's other places that they don't have power. They don't have heat. Our schedules overflow all the time. How many times have we looked at and now we've got digital, and we have paper, and how many times have we looked at our schedule and it's booked solid, and we don't take that time out for just us, a day for us, once a week, 1 hour a week even. So from the time we wake up until the moment we fall into bed, many of us are moving around. We're planning our day or planning the week. We're thinking about things that we should be doing or could be doing, instead of just having our coffee on the deck and just saying, yeah, it's going to be a great day today. And we're always striving for something, reaching for something. And yet when Spirit whispers in a language that is often drowned out by all that noise. So when we're busy, when we're on the computer, we're always on our phone and going somewhere, we don't hear Spirit because Spirit's very quiet. So we have to take that pause to listen. What's Spirit trying to tell me today? God doesn't shout over the chaos of the world. The divine presence lives in stillness, in silence, and in the gentle pause between one breath and the next. That pause is sacred. It is more than a moment of rest. It is a meeting place with Spirit. It is a threshold between the human and the divine, between reaction and response, between fear and faith. There was once a violinist who played on the busy streets of Chicago, and every morning he would get up early in the morning, he'd go down to the subway, set up his guitar and his little sound system, and he would play. And he would play, it didn't matter who was there, who wasn't there, if people were rushing by. And he would just play this beautiful, exquisite music. And they classified him as one of the world's class musicians. Many people didn't notice him because they were just walking by, too busy with their own lives. And guess what? One day, this little girl was with her mom. And they're walking by this musician, and she's holding Mom's hand. And she yanks Mom's hand, and she stops. And they both stop and turned and looked at this musician. This little child stood there in total awe, his eyes wide open. And in that moment, that child entered the sacred pause. As long with the mother, they both took that moment just to listen. And listen to the pause, the quiet of the music. This story reminds us that the place where music is always playing in our lives. There's always something going on in our lives. But do we hear that music, that soft, silent? When you go out for a walk on Bower Pond, and there's lots of people walking around, but do you stop and listen to the wind, that gentle breeze, and watch the rustle of the water? That's that sacred pause. It takes just moments out of our time. But most of us, when we're going for a walk, because we're getting our exercise and we're just going like crazy, away we go, and we don't look. And sometimes we don't look down either, and you trip over a stone, which I am very famous of doing that. I can show you the bruises on my knees. You belong to that club too? Anybody else want to join that club? So it's how many of us do stop and take that time? When you're walking in a mall, I know most people go in there, I got to go shopping, I get this, got to pick this up, that. But have you stopped to watch the other people? And we're all like that. We're just zooming everywhere. To listen to the music of the busker that, I don't know if Red Deer has many buskers here or not, but I know when I lived in Calgary, went down to 7th Avenue, downtown, there was a busker just about in every corner, and they're playing their guitar, some are playing drums, or some are just, singing a song and stuff like that. But you take the time to listen to what that's their livelihood, a lot of them there. But most of us walk right by there and keep our head down because I don't want to pay any money for that because, but they don't ask for your money. They're there, and that's just a gift that you can give them. They're there to entertain us and for us to take that sacred pause and listen to them. And some of them are just phenomenal singers. They're just absolutely amazing. How about watching that sunset? You take the time to go out when that sun is setting down and just, wow. We've been having some really super bright red sunsets and sunrises. I'm not up that early to see those unless I'm camping, but I know Reverend Tress had posted on Facebook here one morning that it was just absolutely stunning. And even that, taking the moment to look at that and appreciate that Reverend Tress would even post that for us to be blessed with it. But what about a child at play? Have you ever watched kids play? They're just right into it, and they're pausing and enjoying that moment. They don't care if their dog's barking. They don't care if the cars are going by. They don't care about anything. Unless they're hungry, then their stomach's growling. But they just play. They're just in the moment. And we also know that wisdom of the sacred pause is found in many spiritual traditions. In Psalms, we hear, "Be still and know that I am God. And that's on 46, chapter 10. In Tao Te Ching, Lei Tao teaches the space between heaven and earth is like a bellows, empty yet exquisite. In Buddhism, mindfulness meditation begins with a pause, noticing the breath, noticing the presence, without judgment. In The Science of Mind, Ernest Holm reminds us, there is a place in us which lies open to the infinite. This place is accessible only through the sacred pause, through meditation, contemplation, and prayer. In the active stopping of turning inward, we align ourselves with the creative power that moves through the galaxies and animates the beating heart. Stillness, pause, and silence. Each tradition points us toward the same truth. God is not far away, but available in every quiet moment when we turn our attention toward it, and when we turn our attention inwards to our silence, to our heart. One of my favorite teachings on the sacred pause comes from Viktor Frankl, who wrote in The Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if many of you know his story. It's a phenomenal story of what he went through. And he says, between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space, our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Think about that. Every time something happens, an event, a word, a challenge, there is a gap, however small, before we react. That gap is the pause. It's sacred because it gives us a chance to choose love over fear, compassion over anger, and faith over doubt. Without that pause, we live on autopilot. With the pause, we live consciously. And it's about taking that pause, that deep breath, and just being still and letting it go, regardless of what's going on. And like I said, many of us have lived busy lives getting down here, even driving in the car. And I am guilty of this. I don't take enough pauses when I'm driving my car. I do get frustrated, and because I have a heavy foot and I don't like being behind slow people. So if I can't pass, I get a little bit. So I just have to take, this too shall pass, and I just go and go with the speed like everybody else until I have a chance to pass safely. But I do take a lot of pauses when I'm driving, but not quite enough. So in the busy times, the sacred pause is essential. It calls us to stop, to turn inward, and reconnect with spirit. Because without pause, we get swept up in life's momentum. We get reactive, we become stressed and exhausted. We make decisions from fear or habit rather than wisdom. We miss the beauty unfolding all around us. But with a pause, we realign with spirit. We remember who we are. We reconnect with one another. We open to guidance, creativity, and peace. The sacred pause is not about doing nothing. It's about creating space for spirit to move through us. So here's some practical ideas that you can practice going forward about cultivating this in your daily life, about the sacred pause. Pause in your breath. The simplest way is with the breath. When you feel anxious, you feel hurried or upset, just pause. Just pause. Take one conscious breath, inhaling fully, hold it, and then exhale slowly. That single pause can reset your nervous system and open the door for Spirit's wisdom to come through. Second thing, pause before responding. When someone says something that triggers you, pause. Instead of reacting instantly, once again, breathe and choose your words with intention. That pause may save a relationship, heal a misunderstanding, or invite a deeper conversation. Pause in nature. This is my favorite. Go outside. Stand beneath a tree. Look at the sky. Feel the breeze. Even just for a minute, if pausing in nature can reconnect you to the sacred rhythm of life. Pause at threshold. Build micro pauses into your day. Before starting a meeting, pause. Before answering the phone, pause. Before eating your meal, pause. Each pause becomes a prayer, a reminder that God is there. Pause for gratitude. Before going to bed, pause and reflect on the one thing that you're grateful for. I know many of us have more than one thing, but just one thing that you're grateful for. That small act aligns your mind with the heart of Spirit's abundance. The sacred pause is especially powerful in times of transition. Think about the dawn and the dusk, the pause between night and day. Think about the pause between an inhale and an exhale. Think about the moment between letting go of the old and stepping into the new. And we were just talking here earlier about letting go and how hard it is to let go of stuff. And we've been talking about this is the time to let go and bring in the new. As Reverend Joanne says, this is, for her, a new year, and for many of us, too, that we feel it's a new year. How many of us are letting stuff go, and how hard is that when you look at something and it's like, take that breath and pause. Do I really need that? Nope. Okay. Donate. Ooh, I really have a hard time. Maybe pile. No, don't need this. Don't even have to pause thinking about that one, and away it goes, right? So many of us go through that. And to do it again in the springtime, letting go. So in between the pauses, Spirit is especially present. They are the thresholds, the holy ground. Maybe you are in a season of pause right now. A job has ended and you're just not sure where you're going from there. A relationship has shifted, but you're not sure what's next. You're waiting for clarity, healing, or direction. And that waiting can feel uncomfortable, but it is sacred. Because in that pause, God is preparing the soil of your soul for new growth. I remember a time in my own life when I was rushing from one responsibility to another, feeling burnt out and disconnected. I was working 2 jobs, I was running the center, I was going to school. It was just crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And I was at the point where it was like, I think I've had enough. I think I'm just going to lay down and just go to bed for a month and not wake up. And of course, I was complaining to my mentor. Reverend Doug was correct. Never ever complain to Reverend Doug, because he always has a good answer for you. And he says to me, oh, what would happen if you just paused? What? What is a pause? What are you talking about, pause? I don't have time in my life to pause. And he says, well, that's exactly why you need to take the time and pause and look at everything you're doing and what can you let go of. Well, I don't think so. So I totally resisted, because to me it was like I'm falling behind. Maybe I'm just being lazy. I'm losing control. All of those things. But it was at the point that I was totally out of control. I wasn't in control, that I took that pause. And I'm telling you, it was the greatest thing I ever did. For 1 week, I had a tent. I was camping in a tent. I went out to the bush. I took absolutely nothing, some food, my tent, sleeping bag, and a pen and a journal, and that's it. No books, no nothing. And I went out there for a week, and I sat there. The first couple of days was really tough, because you know what comes up in here? The monkey mind, the chatter. So you don't pause. You just, things keep rolling. By the 3rd day, I was coming at peace. And it was nice and quiet. I could hear the birds singing. I could hear the wind rustling on my tent by this 3rd day. I could hear the chipmunks, wanting where the peanuts were, and I didn't bring any, but. And so I took that time out. By the 7th day, I felt like a whole new person. I had direction coming back, and I realized I had to give stuff up. And I didn't like that part of it, but as I had to give things up, I took my pause, and again, and again, and again, until I was ready to let it go, and reschedule my life the way it was going to work for me and for my highest good and the highest good of all concerned, especially my children, because they weren't too happy that I was too busy in their lives and didn't have time for them. So I became centered, I felt more alive, and I was more open to God's guidance. The pause didn't take me away from life, it gave me back my life. Wayne Dyer writes in his book, Getting in the Gap, make peace with silence. Remind yourself that it is in this space that you will come to remember your spirit. When you're able to transcend an aversion to silence, you'll also transcend many other miseries. And in this silence, the remembrance of God will be activated. I'm going to read that last sentence again because it was worth hearing. And in this silence, that's the remembrance of God will be activated. So what would happen if you build more pauses in your life? Imagine a community that doesn't race from one Sunday to the next, but pauses throughout the week to breathe, to listen, and to notice God's presence in the ordinary moments. Imagine how our relationship would change if we paused to truly listen, to see one another, to respond with compassion instead of haste. Imagine our world would shift if leaders paused before speaking. Can you imagine going to listen to the parliament and the speakers talking, and all of a sudden it's silence? No arguing, no nothing. People are just absorbing what that leader said. If nations paused before reacting, we probably wouldn't have a war. Wouldn't that be marvelous? If humanity paused long enough to remember, we are all one. What a peaceful world we'd live in. The sacred pause is not just personal, it is collective. It is world-changing. So one more, I'd like to leave you with a story here that I worked at a homeless shelter, which many of you knew. And I got to know a lot of the homeless people quite intimately about their life stories and about things that were going on. And I worked at the dry shelter, so there was no alcohol or drugs and stuff allowed. And if you were, we would ship you off somewhere else till you sobered up. So a lot of these people were looking forward to trying to put their lives forward. They'd already dealt with all this stuff, and now they're trying to move forward. And this one fellow, he was always cheery. Like, he came to the shelter, he cleaned his lact up and everything else. And from the moment he came to our shelter, he was always happy, always smiling, always giving words of advice to the other homeless people there and stuff. And then one morning I came in, and he was quiet. He was just very quiet, sitting at the dining table. He's not saying a lot, right? And he was just down there, and he had his hands on the table, and his head was down. And I thought, gee, there's something that's not quite right here. And so I went up to him and said to him, "How are you doing today?" Never said anything. He just sat there quietly and looked up. And I said again, "How are you doing today?" And he turned to me, and just for a split second, he had a smile on his face. And he turned around and he just quietly said, "I feel like such a failure. I've been here for so long, I can't find a job. No one wants to talk to me because I'm homeless, and I look like I'm homeless." And he went on and stuff like that. And he just says, "I feel just like my life is over." This young man was like 26, 27. So he had his whole life ahead of him. But at that moment, he felt it was over. So I sat and talked with him, and I said, "You've got your whole life ahead of you. Look what you've done. You've moved from sleeping on a park bench, barely getting your head over the curb of the sidewalk because you were so stoned. You cleaned up your act. You came here. You've been sober for over 6 months. That in itself is a feat. I mean, you beat that part of it." And he turned around and he says, "You know what? Thank you. Thank you for that." He said, "I feel like at least one person cares." And that's all it takes. It takes one person to care for you to take that sacred pause yourself and go up to somebody and say, "How are you doing today?" Especially if you know who they are or their personality and stuff, and you just see that they're down. Just that one, "How are you doing today?" And you take that breath in and you pause and listen. That's all it takes. That young man has totally turned his life around. I'm still in contact with the shelter there, the people. He has a job, bought a brand new truck, and he's looking at buying a house. It's amazing. Just ask, "How are you doing today?" That's all it took. All it took. Sometimes a shift in it can happen in an instant. The simple question, the shared moment, created a tiny crack in his darkness for me just to pause and ask. And in that moment, hope that slipped in for him, and now he's soaring. He's just soaring. He's doing really, really good. I'm so glad that he has done that. So we never know how powerful pause can be. It can save a moment, a relationship, or even a life. So this week, I invite you to practice sacred pause. Pause in your breath. Pause in your relationships. Look at each other and just take a deep breath. And be grateful for that person that's in your life. Pause in your work. So we're busy on our computers and stuff and doing different things, and pause. Just take a pause. Take a deep breath. And carry on. Pause in your prayer. Prayers are so important. Pause in your prayer. So when you're asking for what you need, ask one divine mind. And then when you get asked for that, just pause and know that it's happening in that moment, that God is listening to you. Every pause is holy. Each pause is a place with God. Each pause an invitation to live more fully, more lovingly, and more consciously. So I invite you to go forth into your week carrying the sacred pause in your heart. May you find God in every breath, in every silence, in every space in between. And may you know that the peace that passes understanding, and may you share that peace with all you meet. And so it is.